Put that Hall of Fame game in the Hall of Fame. This is our first 49ers live reaction of the season. That was fun. Haynes King, Carolina Panthers win at the final second. Touchdown as time expires, just in time for us to host one of the Golden Hour lives here. Talking about the big change the 49ers just made up front over the course of the past two practice block. 49ers running things a little bit differently this year. But they have demoted Connor Colby from the first team. He'd been with the ones at left guard for the first few practices. Colby is now working with the second and even the third team. And today he was at right guard, not left guard. Now, let's listen into Chris Foerster, the 49ers O-line coach, who was asked about Connor Colby in relation to Dominic Pooney, who's been playing really well for the 49ers, their starter at right guard. This is really important context from Chris Foerster.
Yeah, Connor, Dominic has made more strides. He's had a great offseason. Dominic's continued into training camp. Connor made great strides in the offseason, same way. It looked like he'd made a big step. Now we're getting back to some live work, and even though it has improved, some of those same holes are still there. Just like a year ago with Dom, he tried to fix them in the offseason. He did, but then when the live work and pads started, it started not being as consistent. So some of the things that he struggled with a year ago are coming back. Not as bad as they were, but still not the consistency that we'd like to see.
Still not the consistency that we'd like to see. Foerster straight up said that Connor Colby has regressed over the course of the past few practices once the pads have come on. Consider the offseason hype train that the 49ers were trying to generate for Connor Colby. You heard him talking about it, all the hard work he was putting in, the massive strides that he had made. Well, they acknowledged that he made strides, but now they have said, well, he reverted to some of his old habits once the pads have come on, and that has been reflected based on what we have actually seen on the field. The first team for the 49ers at that guard position has been manned by Robert Jones, the veteran whom the 49ers signed this offseason. You could take a look at my depth chart. I've actually made the change here. So at left guard, I had Colby on the first team at the start of training camp. I now have Jones in that only 49ers position along the offensive line that is up for grabs. Trent Williams is going to start at left tackle. Jake Brendel's going to start at center. Dominic Pooney, you just heard about him. He had a really good offseason. He's going to be the right guard. Colton McKivitz is going to be the right tackle. The big question is, who's going to be that left guard? Important spot. Jones is taking the reps with the ones now. And Colby here, on top of the fact that he's no longer taking reps with the ones, he's also been working at right guard for the 49ers. What does that mean? Well, here, just put it really simply. Colby struggled as a rookie. He was forced into action when the 49ers saw an early injury to Ben Barch. High ankle sprain, I believe it was, for Ben Barch in week 1. And that win over the Seattle Seahawks. So Colby was thrust into action before anybody wanted him thrust into action. He struggled. Trent Williams had to pick up a lot of slack for him at left tackle. And then down the stretch run of the season, it was a combination of Barch and Spencer Burford at left guard because Colby just wasn't ready for that job. So fundamentally, Connor Colby, in order to take the job this season, would have to take a big, big jump. That's what the 49ers were talking about over the course of the offseason. It seemed that they were almost willing it to be true. Even if Connor Colby still wins that left guard battle, one can fairly surmise that the 49ers would have no interest in taking left guard reps away from Connor Colby during training camp because he had so much work to do last year when we saw him. You would think that he would need every single rep for the 49ers to feel good about that position and him in it this season. But not only have they demoted him to the second team, the 49ers are playing Connor Colby at right guard. The only reason that you'd play somebody at right guard is if you're trying to get them ready for a backup role. If you're trying to sit, they're limited roster spots, right? Go back here to the 49ers roster. I zoom out a bit. This is the 90-man. You could see it in all of its glory. On the right side of this dividing line, I have players who I don't think are going to make the 53-man roster. On the left side are guys who are going to make the cut. And I could go into the roster mechanics at a later time, but for the time being, I just want you to appreciate that a whole heck of a lot of guys, I'm highlighting them right here, are projected to get cut once they cut down the roster at the end of this month. So, teams rarely carry 10 offensive linemen, and I'm projecting the 49ers to carry 10 right now. I'm going to zoom in on the 10 who I'm projecting them to carry. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take 10, just how the math works out right now. In fact, it might be more likely that the 49ers carry only 9 offensive linemen, which means they would have to remove one of these names. If you do not start, you have to show positional versatility. You have to show that you can back up both left guard and right guard, for example, or that you can back up both left tackle and right tackle, because as a backup, if you can only play at one of those positions, the team probably can't afford to use a roster spot on you for the 53-man. So I think Connor Colby playing at right guard over the course of the past 2 practices, especially today, we saw a ton of right guard for Connor Colby, is the 49ers test of, is this guy viable for the roster or not? If this guy can play both left and right guard, the 49ers will say, okay, well, there's some value in carrying him on the 53-man as a swing guard, kind of like a swing tackle. That's supposed to belong to Vidarian Lowe. But it is not a good sign for Connor Colby that he is not getting first-team reps anymore, because we all saw the value that he could get from extra playing time last year when he struggled at the start of the season. Now, Colby, he played at Iowa. It's a team, as we know from the story of George Kittle, they don't pass the ball a whole heck of a lot. So the pass protection was the big question for Connor Colby showing up at this level. That's why reps are potentially golden for somebody like Connor Colby. Now, though, the 49ers are facing a bigger mess along that interior line because their latest draft pick, Carver Willis, out of the University of Washington, somebody who they're looking at as a potential center of the future, but who's working at guard first, he's in the concussion protocol. So you guys know how I do this with the color shadings. The pink shading means that a player is currently out of practice due to an injury. So we're going to ignore the tackle position for the time being, with one exception, and I'll point that out in a second. Let's keep our eyes on the interior line. Robert Jones is getting first-team reps at left guard. Colby is healthy. He's no longer getting first-team reps. Who else is a potential contributor there at left guard? Carver Willis, but he's hurt. He's in the concussion protocol. Then there's Brett Toth, who the 49ers say is their backup center, but somebody who started for Philadelphia and played well at left guard last year. Toth, however, is also hurt right now, undisclosed injury. Then you've got your depth that's lower end. Nick Zakelj has an elbow injury. He's currently out. Because Zakelj is out, because Willis is out, because Toth is out, 49ers only had 2 guards entering today. That's why they signed Keon Smith, who you see over here. He played guard for the Miami Dolphins under Mike McDaniel, back when Mike McDaniel was the coach there. So Keon Smith brought in for some extra help. The question then becomes, if Connor Colby is no longer in the 49ers' plans to be the starting left guard, and maybe he can still take that job back, but if that is not going to happen, are the 49ers confident in Robert Jones playing that position? And if they're not confident in Robert Jones playing that position, who might be there? How might the 49ers manage the left guard spot? Is there somebody available for a trade? Remember in 2017, the 49ers, just days before the start of the regular season, traded for Laken Tomlinson. Laken Tomlinson is still a free agent. Obviously longer in the tooth, played for the Houston Texans last year, was a full-time starter for the Seattle Seahawks the season before that, but just keep in mind that Laken is actually still out there. Somebody like Daniel Brunskill is still out there. Over the course of most of the offseason, we were monitoring the status of Joel Bitonio, but unfortunately for the 49ers, he retired. The question with Robert Jones is his pass protection. Chris Foerster straight up said that over the course of spring, that Robert Jones is a really good run blocker, did a good job as a power blocking addition to Mike McDaniel's zone blocking scheme in Miami. Foerster said, though, that if he can pass protect, he's definitely going to be a starter for the 49ers. The question is, how well does he pass protect in training camp? If he hits a certain threshold, well, then the 49ers, I think, will be happy to start Robert Jones. If he doesn't, and we've already seen some discomfort here, you heard straight from Chris Foerster himself, Connor Colby is not the answer for the 49ers. So something is going to have to progress for San Francisco at that left guard position, because they've already made one big change to that starting lineup at training camp, swapping Jones for Colby. And we'll see how else it works in front of Brock Purdy as the 49ers aim to make the best offensive line possible. My main question is the starting left guard for the 49ers even on the team, or is that a move that the 49ers are still going to make? Still over a month before their regular season opener against the Rams in Australia. But big change. Keon Smith added to this football team today. They waived or released. It was a release because Colton Dowell's a vested veteran. They released Colton Dowell, a wide receiver, to make room. 49ers back at 90 men. If you want to look at that roster, I could toss this link into the description for you, so you have it right now. Oops. There you go. Copied, and here comes the paste. And I am ready for your questions. By clicking on that link in the chat, you could see the full breadth of the 49ers roster, which I've zoomed out to right now. You could see exactly who's out of practice. Obviously, a lot of guys have been missing time, but the 49ers started to return some players to practice here over the course of the past couple days. We have taken the injury shading off of Dejon Stribling. We've taken it off of Grayson Halton, so 2 rookies back in action for the 49ers. I've taken it off of Dre Greenlaw, too. I had never even put it there because Dre is just dealing with some soreness right now. Osa Digazua was back at practice. He had been dealing with some soreness as well. So I think things slightly at least trended upwards for the 49ers. And as I've maintained on this channel, the media has made a little bit more of a ruckus regarding the players missing practice for the 49ers. It's very clear that the majority of the guys who have been out have been held out for precautionary reasons. Probably the 2 headliners there have been Dejon Stribling and Mike Evans, both of whom have definitely been held out for precautionary reasons. I think if there were a game tomorrow, you'd see both Stribling and Mike Evans playing. Anyway, ask some good questions. That's what Eric Gomes instructs you to do in that chat section. I'm ready to answer some of those questions. Had a good start to this football season. That Hall of Fame game, put it in the Hall of Fame. It normally isn't that good. Carson Beck came out firing, and then we saw the finishing drive from the Carolina Panthers. They won on the final play. Thank God that there's no overtime in the preseason, so we didn't have to deal with a field goal and OT. I would hope that the coaches on both sides would think more highly of themselves and their teams to avoid overtime, even if it were an opportunity. But the Panthers went for the win. It was fun. If the season is anything like the Hall of Fame game, it is going to be a fun NFL season. Adrian says that he's hearing that Bryson Eason and James Thompson Jr. are killing it in camp. I think that they've looked good. It's, really hard to tell when there's no tackling to the ground, when you can't really corral the quarterback, when it's just camp right now. It's practice. The pads are on. I think both of those players have looked strong. They're 2 different types of players. They're undrafted free agent defensive tackles. The 49ers seem that they're relatively well stocked at DT. They really weren't last year. They were able to cut Kevin Givens the other day when Grayson Halton returned. Halton is the one that's truly impressing amongst the youngsters at defensive tackle. I'm really excited for these preseason games. First one is a week from today against the Tennessee Titans. We're going to get to see how these 49ers defensive tackles stack up. Yes, Roger Craig, congratulations to him. He's going to be inducted into that Hall of Fame. I saw a nice little tribute to Roger Craig on the broadcast today. Eric Gomes says that injuries are used for clickbait. Yes, but you don't need clickbait when you could talk about a good old-fashioned 49ers offensive line battle, which is what we're seeing right now at that left guard position. Mike says, if Pooney got hurt, would you trust the 49ers depth? Well, that's part of the reason why the 49ers are working Connor Colby out at right guard now. Dominic Pooney goes down. Who do you play at right guard? Do you have enough depth-wise? Does Connor Colby have the ability to play on that side? Because we've only seen him on the left side so far for the 49ers. So that's all part of the machinations at training camp that we're getting to watch right now. Does Enrique Cruz have a chance to be in the 49ers starting lineup? No, he doesn't. He's a developmental prospect. Right now, he is a backup at tackle, and he's not even the first backup at tackle. That'd be Vidarian Lowe. Issue is the Vidarian Lowe sprained his high ankle sprain first practice of training camp, but he should be back in time for week 1. Trent Williams is the 49ers starter at left tackle. Colton McKivitz is the 49ers unquestioned starter at right tackle. Does Sebastian Valdez have some starting potential, or will he make the 53-man? This is one of my big questions, because the 49ers right now, I think they've got 4 defensive tackles ahead of Valdez, but I know that they really, really like Valdez. So let's zoom in just on that defensive tackle position. These 4 guys right here, I've highlighted them: Osa Odighizuwa, Alfred Collins, C.J. West, and Grayson Halton. I would consider all of them to be ahead of Sebastian Valdez. Typically, you would expect 4 to 5 defensive tackles to make the 53-man roster. So that's 4 on the inside. Right now, the 5th is probably Valdez, but you also have a couple undrafted rookies, James Thompson Jr. and Bryson Eason, pushing for a spot. Now, if they take 5, you're obviously only going to take one of these 3 players, Valdez, Thompson, or Eason, and you'd hope to re-sign the other 2 to the practice squad. So I think that the 49ers right now, I don't want to call it an embarrassment of riches, but I do think that they are impressively loaded at defensive tackle with their young options, especially versus where they were last year. They've been able to cut Evan Anderson. They've been able to bring in Kevin Givens and then cut him. He was only needed to bridge the gap while Grayson Halton was out. And now we'll see how these young guys can perform over the course of the rest of training camp and the preseason. Look, it's getting dark outside here in Russian Hill. That's why I like these golden hour lives. They start in light and they end in darkness. That's not meant to be symbolic. That's meant to be literal. You'll get to see the city lights turn on behind me, and I might have to adjust the lighting of the ring light because it's a challenge as things change behind you as they evolve given the natural sunlight. Joy met me a few years ago at the Dwight Clark event. I remember that. That was fun. The Dwight Clark event, that being the Legacy Series event, which is held every May. Not to be confused with Dwight Clark Day, which officially is going to be tomorrow, 8/7/87, but celebrated today since the 49ers do not have practice open to fans tomorrow. Yes, the 49ers, they've got some names up front now: Odighizuwa, Okawanu, and Sam Okoronkwo, new edge rusher for San Francisco, to fill in some of the depth there. Okoronkwo, interesting player. I mean, he's going to be 32 this year, but somebody who's played for Raheem Morris. He's also played under Jim Schwartz in the wide 9 for Cleveland. So that's kind of the hybrid that the 49ers are running defensively, right? You've got the wide 9 of Chris Kasarik with the philosophy of Raheem Morris. Since Okoronkwo has played in both of those systems, I think that he is a good guy to bridge the gap, at least over the course of training camp. Hi, Nicole. I saw you today. You said you were excited and shocked to see me walking by the stadium. It was fun to say hello to you, and I'm glad that we got to meet today. Thank you for the super chat. Really do appreciate that. Thank you to Antonio for joining our YouTube channel. You can become a member, and I answer your questions first. We have a little members group chat, which I haven't been on in a little while. It's on this Chat BCC app that you would be invited to. I'm going to fire that back up now that training camp has started. Again, took a little bit of a break while I was on paternity leave over the course of this offseason from the group chat. But anybody who signs up for a membership, you can do that through the desktop version of YouTube. If you sign up for a membership, you get a lot of little cool perks. And most importantly, you just support the channel and the hard work that somebody like Mike puts in behind the scenes. I'm not a big hot dog fan. Somebody asking if I've tried Taylor's hot dogs from Visalia. Of course, I've had Taylor's before. It's a legendary spot. All love to Taylor's in downtown Visalia. I'm just not a regular because I'm not a big hot dog guy. But yes, Taylor's legacy business in Visalia, California. Yes, Brock Purdy is on fire. It's what I wrote about today up on the San Francisco Standard. You can read it where I'm dropping a bigger article about Brock Purdy tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So you can go ahead and read it. Here is my Brock Purdy take of the day, and it's a good one, and it's one that I am happy to put on the big screen here because I've got a little chart on the big screen. This is quarterback performance on third downs last year. So you've got completion percentage over expectation on the x-axis, and then you have EPA, which is efficiency, on the y-axis. Now, last year, and here I've got to get something open. Last year, and this basically is something that is a theme every single time that Brock Purdy does something good. There is a very mad dash to just trying to credit Kyle Shanahan's system for every bit of success that Brock Purdy has. Well, first off, that's absolutely preposterous given the fact that Brock Purdy is far and away better than any other quarterback in the NFL in terms of third down performance. And where I come from, we measure people by their performance, what you actually do, not your potential, not what you look like, not where you're drafted, but your performance. But the huge issue, and it's one that I addressed today on X, is that Brock Purdy doesn't happen to be a first-round pick. In fact, he went last at number 262, and the internet can't seem to get over that. If Brock Purdy had been a first-rounder, no one would qualify his astounding production. And yes, this is astounding production. You can see exactly where Brock Purdy's dot is, further to the right and further up. No one would qualify his astounding production while missing wide receivers with Shanahan system drivel. Kind of like how no one qualifies Matthew Stafford's worst numbers with healthy wide receivers with McVay system talk. Nobody talks about McVay's system when they're talking about Matthew Stafford. Plain and simple, Brock Purdy is a victim of draft worship. I call it draftism. And I'm just not going to stand for it. We're going to be objective here. This is what I wrote on X. You can have a little read of it while it's up on the screen. But Brock Purdy was awesome at practice today. He was down his top 4 wide receivers. And Brock Purdy has gone 24 of 28 while down his top 4 wide receivers over the course of the past 2 practices. On top of that, he threw 2 deep balls today that were absolutely perfect. He could not have run up and handed the ball to his receivers in a more accurate placement today on those deep passes. And the names of the receivers who he threw those touchdowns to were Malik Turner and Kadarrell Hodge. 2 guys who you might not have ever heard of before. Malik Turner has been with the 49ers. Kadarrell Hodge hasn't. He just signed yesterday. And Purdy already delivering passes on the money, 40 to 50 yards downfield for 70-yard touchdowns to those guys. So, you look at the great quarterbacks in NFL history, and the most famous recent example is Tom Brady. Brady would be able to keep the line moving on a week in, week out, year in, year out basis, despite the fact that the wide receiver core for New England seemed to change very readily. And it seemed that it was always some guy that we had never heard of who Tom Brady was making look good. Well, guess what Brock Purdy has done over the course of the past 2 seasons? 2024, the 49ers had the worst separation in the league, and Purdy was number 6 in QBR. 2025, the 49ers had one of the worst separation marks in the league, and Purdy was number 2 in QBR. He's been a top 5 quarterback in terms of an actual measurable over the course of the past 2 seasons, despite having arguably, maybe it's not even arguable, but factual, despite having the worst wide receiver core in the league. All kinds of injuries for the 49ers. Now, so that was a theme last year, right? Purdy somehow willed the 49ers to all those victories. 6 in a row there at the end. They beat the Eagles with a skeleton crew at wide receiver, with George Kittle having torn his Achilles. Purdy somehow still got it done. It was stuff that Brady would do with the New England Patriots with that rotating cast seemingly every single season. I'm talking post Randy Moss. Obviously, they had Moss in 2007, but Purdy's been able to do that. Today at practice and yesterday at practice, you combine those 2 days, he went 24 of 28, put deep passes right in the breadbasket of receivers many of you probably have never heard of, and completely dominated through both sessions despite missing his top 4 wide receivers. You could even argue his top 5 if you include Brandon Ayuk in that mix, since he's technically still part of the 49ers team. He's on the left squad list, but I digress. We don't have to talk about Brandon Ayuk. But we can talk about the fact that Ricky Pearsall's done for the season. Mike Evans and Dejon Stribling were both not practicing in team drills, and Christian Kirk is also out with the calf strain. So objectively, the 4 most established 49ers wide receivers are not there for Brock Purdy, and he is still dominating. Objectively, when you look at actual metrics, when Brock Purdy was missing what many would consider to be a competent supporting cast, he far and away outpaced the entire league last year. This is the quarterback's down. This is third down. Brock Purdy, after a few more attempts this season, will qualify for the all-time leaderboard amongst quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy at some point this season will officially be and own the highest passer rating of all time in NFL history. Yet you still have people talking about him as if he's some kind of middle-of-the-road or borderline top 10 quarterback. That's just objectively not true. He's one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game, and the 49ers have to make sure that they protect him as well as possible. Now, one thing that makes Brock Purdy absolutely great is the fact that he can escape sacks better than anybody in the league. He had the best pressure-to-sack ratio in the entire NFL last year. So can he get away with having subpar play at left guard? Yes, he's already gotten away with having subpar play at right guard over the course of the 2023 season. But would it be ideal for the 49ers to shore up left guard as well as possible through this competition between Colby, Jones, and maybe Carver, Willis, maybe Brett Toth? Maybe that's the break glass in case of emergency option, going to Brett Toth, even if he's your backup center. Of course, that would be ideal for the 49ers. That's what you're looking at as the setting of this competition. You've got an all-world left tackle. Your center is solid. I don't care what anybody says. Jake Brendel was fine last year for the 49ers at center. It was 2 years ago where he was more of a problem with the knee tendonitis. But I think that center and left tackle both have to worry about left guard when left guard is not properly manned. And last year, the 49ers had some issues at left guard. So it hurt both Williams and Brendel because you're having to help the guy next to you. Right guard, I think the 49ers are blossoming there with Dominic Pooney. He unfortunately had to play last year coming off the injury. That shouldn't be the case this year, knock on wood. And then you've got the right tackle position where Colton McKivitz has been getting better and better. The one spot in front of Brock Purdy where things truly need to be shored up, where the 49ers need to find an answer, is that left guard position. Time for a little bit of a lighting adjustment since it's gotten totally dark outside here in San Francisco behind me. So what I do during the lighting adjustment is I put that up there. You guys can take a look at the 49ers offensive line battle. You guys can go to the comment section to see how this all projects while I reach over here. I need a remote control. I think that would be the best thing. A remote control for my ring light, because I got to turn it down a little bit. And maybe after I turn it down, we'll have a little bit better view of the city behind me. These are just things like we're getting settled into this new. Oh, yeah, that's so much better. It was way too bright there for a little bit. That's so much better. I had to start it out bright because I had a lot of lighting to contend with in the background, but then I had to turn it down, and now you could actually see dusk in San Francisco. So I'm ready to answer a few more of your questions. We got an Australian chiming in. Yeah, I've wanted to go to Australia for a long time. I'm very excited about this trip to Australia. I'm going to hit the big cities on the east coast of Australia. I understand that it's kind of winter moving into spring for you guys out there. Bomeister kicking well in camp, and he's going to be competing with, and he is competing with Corliss Waitman. We'll see who the 49ers punter is for that week 1 game in Australia. But I appreciate the super chat from what, like a day ahead? Or is it what, August 7th in Australia right now? Let's look up at the time here. Let's go Melbourne time. It currently is 1:36 p.m. on August 7th. It's Friday. So I'm pretty sure Garrett here is speaking to us from the future. It's Friday while we're here a Thursday night. So, fast forward to September when the 49ers play the Rams. That week 1 game will be finishing up at around this time, 8:36 p.m. Pacific. And it's going to be about 1:30 p.m. in Australia. It's going to be a morning game locally in Australia. Thank you again. Got another member, David V, signed up to be a member to support the channel. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. So you guys could probably see, I'll have to show you a street level video, but you see cable cars going by on Hyde Street. I know it's blurred out in the background, but that right there where the lights are behind my pointing thumb, that's Hyde. That's probably the most famous cable car route in San Francisco. You see those cable cars climb up from the bay with Alcatraz in the background. That's the street. No cable car right now. I just looked to see if there was one. Maybe one day I could just move the camera to the window and we can check it out. But ready to answer some more questions. Getting Vea seems kind of far-fetched. Maybe. What about a trade for Thibodeau, and this is Kayvon Thibodeau, New York Giants, entering his final year under contract? It might be more realistic, might be a cheaper price. I would assume it would be. And maybe the 49ers feel that they need edge rusher more than they need defensive tackle based on what I showed you guys. Either way, the deadline's not till November, and we're sitting here in August. The trade deadline is about 3 months away, right? It's 8 on the calendar now. It's going to be 11 on the calendar once that trade deadline hits. So still a lot of time for the 49ers to figure out their exact needs, for the market to shift, for other teams to enter selling mode. I would not be surprised to see the 49ers make another big move, either before this season starts or before the trade deadline in November. This is a good question. What do I think of the 49ers and Rams' different approaches for the Australia game? The 49ers are going a week early. I fly also on September 2nd. We'll get there on September 4th. You lose an entire day. 49ers want to adjust to the time, and not just that. They want to make sure that their bodies have enough time to recover from a 15-and-a-half-hour flight, because planes can make your body feel like a crushed aluminum can, even if you're in Polaris or first class or however you like to fly. So these are big guys, right? So even the first class seats are a little bit small for some of the bigger guys. The Rams, they don't want to deal with any time change. So they're just going to pretend that they're still on Pacific time and play the game in prime time on their body clocks. They're going to surgically strike, try to fly in and fly out. The concern with the Rams approach is, what does a plane do to you physically over 15-and-a-half hours? And is 24 hours? I think that's all that there's going to be in between their landing in Melbourne and kickoff. Is that enough to decompress your body from the plane? The Rams did something similar last year when they flew to London, but London is not as far of a flight as Australia. So this is fascinating, the two opposing approaches. I don't think we've ever had this kind of test study because, the NFL is a professional league, the highest level of football. There is a thought amongst NFL that they've got stuff like this figured out, that, you basically all do the same thing. And the margins are tiny in the league. The way the Rams are approaching some of these international games last year and this year with their travel is completely different than the accepted way of practice that had been established in the NFL. So for the first time, we get this crazy side-by-side comparison. The Rams won their game last year. I think did they play Jacksonville? I think it was Jacksonville. They won their game last year. This is going to be an even bigger test of their, I would say, radical travel plan. against the 49ers in Australia. Somebody asking how Ephesians Prysock looks. He's had a few pass breakups. He's long. I like how Ephesians Prysock looks at practice. I think he's going to make the 49ers 53-man roster. Player with a lot of potential with that length. What impact do I expect from Watkins? Well, the 49ers would be thrilled if he can win that Z receiver position. If he can win the Z or at least make a significant contribution, that's where Ricky Pearsall formerly occupied a starting spot. It would allow Deebo Samuel to be a specific type of gadget weapon. And again, I don't mean that in a pejorative for Deebo Samuel. I think he's one of the great gadget weapons to ever play this game because of how he can play running back, how he can, take a screen pass, you can run a deep pattern. Obviously a good returner. I think you want Deebo to be specialized, but in order for Deebo to be specialized, Watkins has to have a big role, and we'll see if he can grab that. I think the preseason games might be important for Jordan Watkins. Got big Upton Stout fans. That's good to see. Upton Stout's a fun player to watch. Today, Raheem Morris was talking about how Stout can play linebacker. Stout can play outside cornerback. Stout can play safety. Nickelback is really a combination of all of those. Because nickel, you're playing in at the same level as linebackers. You've got to get your nose dirty against the run. It's really physical. But then you're covering wide receivers. The best wideouts now line up in the slot. They'll move inside. They're all over the formation. So you're having to be an outside cornerback and the coverage responsibilities, right, against guys who play on the inside. And then, if you're playing a little bit further off the line, you're taking a safety's duties. And I think the 49ers, there's going to be so much interchangeability on the back end. Raheem Morris was even flipping the cornerbacks today, Lenore and Renardo Green, opposite sides than normal, because he wants to prepare this defensive backfield to be resilient in the case of injuries over the course of a game or the regular season. So Stout's probably going to have an opportunity to play in a bunch of different spots for San Francisco in this new defense. It is a bad day to be a spreadsheet. You're going to get a lot of eyeballs on you if you're a spreadsheet. That's for sure. Shout out to the spreadsheet, the 49ers 90-man roster, and the depth chart. The 49ers have meetings on their non-practice days during camp. On the players' days off, they're completely off. That's only one every 5 days. Tomorrow, they have a walkthrough. So they're going to have meetings and everything. They just don't fully practice tomorrow. Look, it's almost completely dark outside. You see the last kind of traces of sunlight here in San Francisco. Raheem Morris does seem very impressed by Purdy. He likes listening to Purdy barking orders on the walkie-talkie and talking to the offensive coaches. He said he was really, really impressed by that. That was a cool quote today from Raheem Morris. Everybody, you need to hit the subscribe button. The channel is blowing up unlike we have ever seen before. Want to shout out to Mike, who's helped produce this so well. Mike, do you know our average views for the instant reactions to practice by the helmet? Mike might know. I think it's above 60,000 views. I think last year we were probably between 30 and 40,000 views. This year we might even be above 60,000. So we have doubled in viewership. These things are going crazy. We're trying to put as much quality editing into them as possible and get them up quick for you guys. And I really am beyond thankful for the fact that so many of you have joined this journey. Mike says we're probably averaging more than 60,000. You see some of these other channels, they're struggling to get 10,000 a video. I am flattered that you are choosing us for your accurate instant reactions. We've built this from the ground up since 2021. And those of you who are new here, thank you for checking us out. Hit that subscribe button. Join us in the membership column on your desktop of YouTube, and know that we're very, very happy to have you aboard. This is good. Support this man's newborn child. She was in the audience the other day. It was like a live audience, like one of those talk shows where they have the live audience. Savannah Lombardi, almost 4 months old, was sitting there learning about Deebo Samuel. and his contract the other day. We went in depth, and Mike made those nice graphics for us. So anyway, thank you guys for the support. Yeah, the integrity part I think is important. Now, I don't know if I'm old school because I run YouTube and we're the leading 49ers YouTube channel, but I would say it's a combination of old school and new school, but I do appreciate the nice compliment. Yeah, hit the sub, hit the like, do all that stuff. It's awesome that we could just pop on a random show and have good 700 to 800 of you guys watching. You like the name Savannah? That's good. We like it too. That's why we picked it. And yes, once the regular season starts, there will be in-depth breakdowns of every game, instant reactions right after the final whistle. So you'll get the unadulterated take on that game and then much more. Then we do highly produced stuff in San Francisco itself. And you guys know I like to show you the city. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's the big change the 49ers just made up front. I'm going to keep on monitoring that. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Thank you again. We will talk to you soon.